So I have a suggested middle ground here so we can actually start this fucking thing. Let's have Keith do that intro uninterrupted and then kind of go around the horn, and then from there it can become the live organic super high energy. Yeah? Does that work? I'm going to count it down. And 3, 2, 1.
Question. What type of legacy is Elon Musk leaving the world?
Oof. Where do we start? Who the
You
hell
tell
are
me.
we even? I will tell you. I think that he's the continuation of a shockingly destructive trend in leadership of punching down sarcastic leadership.
Well, who's been following him?
Meaning following him, that obviously can be a double
Well,
entendre.
who's keeping up on what he's trying to accomplish or not accomplish?
I mean, it's hard to avoid it. It's in the news, consistently, and on social media consistently. So what he's trying to accomplish, though, I think that's the $1,000,000 question. I don't know that anybody.
Yeah, it is the question. I'm not even sure I know what it is he's attempting to accomplish.
Because I haven't read anything as to when he tried to take over or took over or bought out Twitter. And yeah. I didn't know if there was any specific thing he was trying to do with the company. Now, he is one of many leaders that have, a big brand, big name, and we could kind of track on, our history board, the things that people with big names have done with companies that have taken over. But what he's done has kind of flipped the coin on all of that. So I want to know from you guys, what's going on with Elon Musk?
Well, let me just say this part is there are big names of leaders, but there are the actions or behaviors of the leaders that I kind of will address. So for Elon Musk, specifically talking about his behavior or how I see him in leadership. And realistically, he's more of what would be referred to as a charismatic leader in the charismatic leadership. Now, it doesn't mean that leaders don't have charisma, but a charismatic leader by definition is one where individuals will follow this individual because they create this big vision. They have these big expectations. They create all this energy around a future that they may not necessarily be able to deliver on. And as long as all the individuals who are there following along are getting along with the leader has time for them and everything is great. But as soon as you buck the system, as soon as you make the leader and that charismatic format have to defend what they are doing or really provide some real meat to the message that they've been delivering, then those followers are then kicked off to the side.
But I don't know if I would, hang on. I don't know if I would, as a definition of charismatic leader, I don't know if that kind of negative outcome at the end there is something you can count on. I think that you were right. Like, charismatic leader and visionary leaders are kind of similar in that essentially people are attracted to their personality. That can be true, and they certainly can kind of be charlatans as well. And certainly,
well, no, by definition, a charismatic leader, that is the one I defined. A visionary leader, all leaders by definition have a vision, right? So it's a matter of how you construct.
But I don't think he's communicated any clear vision.
That's the point I'm making. Except for the fact that the vision with him is going to be this big, bright future full of technology, full of all of whatever it is that he is producing or selling at the moment. That's my assessment of him. Unlike leaders like Lee Iacocca from the past, who was a charismatic leader, or they had charisma. So Lee Iacocca had charisma. The founder of Wendy's, Dave Thomas, had charisma, but they weren't charismatic leaders. It wasn't their way or the highway. It wasn't selling something that they necessarily couldn't deliver. So the vision they had, Brandon, when we talked about vision, is they had a vision, but the vision for them was based on what we would refer to as transformational leadership. And that individual leader then not only presented the future, but taught people how to get there. And a charismatic leader does not care how anybody gets there as long as the charismatic leader is in charge. Charismatic leaders really
But
feel
wait,
feeding ego.
he's totally, dumped the basket on so many people. And that's probably a poor metaphor, but he's created so much disruption in this one company. How is it going to recover?
Yeah, to go to Troy's point, though, I remember about 7 or 8 years ago when Tesla first really came out, and I went to a Tesla store for the first time. And the young lady that was showing us the Teslas, she said, "Did you notice the names of the models of the car?" I said,
And
"Like,
this
what
was
do you mean?
7 years ago.
Yeah, they're either one letter or a number or whatever it was." And she said, "Yeah, look at what they spell." And the models of their cars spell the word sexy. And she said, "I'll never forget, we were sitting at one of the first meetings and Elon Musk was presenting, and he said, 'I named the model of my cars after myself.'" Sexy.
Is that
So
a real
while-
story?
Yes, not
Yeah.
kidding. I was in Phoenix, Arizona. So
That's-
while that's funny, it proves the point that Troy is making. If a knucklehead can stand in front of their people and say, "I'm naming the model of my cars after myself," sexy, you should quit your job and go find another place to work, because that's not going to end well.
Well,
And
or
so
you should evolve.
Well,
right?
but I
Like,
mean, but you're working for an arrogant person who never sees the world outside of their own lens. So I would argue you can't evolve to that specimen. If you do, you're going to be lowering yourself. Hopefully, you were living at a higher standard than that. And we see the reflection of that in his leadership. So what's his legacy? It's pain, it's suffering, it's oppression, it's bankruptcy, it's leveraging the hurt and the work of other people to create another playground that only billionaires can create. And so that to me is the legacy. When you walk in the door because you overspent on a company and you know that your only solution to balance out the expenditure is to fire 90% of their staff. Now you're selling off properties. Now on Friday, we learned that they're literally having garage sales in Twitter properties to sell off. Why is he doing that? Because he overspent by 500% what Twitter was actually valued at. And that's what people of his echelon do. So his legacy is simple. People can't pay their bills.
But my thought is, so he makes that big purchase and he's trying to like shake it up, obviously. And I think there's something to be said for a little bit of showmanship with a purchase like that, with the way that it went down. Like, I think there was a
But people
balance that
left.
could have been struck.
Consumers left and people left.
Sure. But
I mean,
that's
they
what
literally
he's
turned
scorching,
180.
scorching earth. Like, and I don't understand it. Like, it's such malpractice that, it defies any kind of business reason and almost feels like there's an intentional desire to burn it to the ground.
And
It did. It very much looked like that. Troy, Dr. Troy?
And I do want to qualify that in the book, Cohesion Culture, I actually refer to Elon Musk in one of my examples of
As an
sort of the mentality that you might have. And it wasn't an unfavorable connection. It was basically describing him in a particular way. And there's a certain, when I first became aware of him and what he was doing, I was a little enamored with him. I thought, man, this is really great. Look at this guy. He wants to link up satellites. He wants to take people to space. He wants to create electric cars. He wants, and I'm kind of thinking this guy really wants to do a lot of really great things for people. But after further investigation, and it's too late because it's already in print, but the reality is that it wasn't about the goodness for others, it was about the goodness for him.
Brandon?
Yeah, it's masochism at its best, right?
Wow,
Sorry to
that's a
interrupt.
strong word, Mitch. Brandon,
But it's true. It's true.
Yes.
you were saying something before Dr. Troy interrupted.
Oh,
Oops,
no
sorry.
interruption. No, you're fine. Essentially, and really to follow what Dr. Troy was saying, is I think that with he did. I had the same feeling. I had the same feeling about Musk, where I was like, this guy's not that he's cool. I don't idolize billionaires. Like I don't see the value in it. But I was interested in a lot of things he was doing, and I thought that, okay, this is a neat approach to business. I have a feeling that there's a certain intoxication once you become crossover and become kind of a celebrity for doing it. And I feel like that has changed. Look, prior to a couple of years ago, Tesla employees were some of the highest paid employees in the industry. His companies made money. They were sustainable. The people were taken care of. There wasn't as many clues of this kind of, you're going to work, until you bleed out of your eyes, or you can go kick rocks. Like that kind of just abusive leadership wasn't obvious. And I didn't hear anything, no scuttlebutt about it through his companies. And he's had multiple companies. So it's not like he had a track record of being an abusive boss or I don't know. I feel like he got a little celebrity, and I just feel like when you're the richest man in the world, who are you trying to impress at this point by being a prick to people on Twitter?
That's a harsh term, man.
Childish. Yeah, I think it's as soft as it could be.
Okay.
But
he did say it did start with a P.
Yeah, well, right. But I feel like I just don't get it. Like, I don't get how needy you would have to be like showing off and being like the mean girl for the world when you're the richest person. You've been wildly successful. You have a million things going on that you could focus on that actually bring value to the world. And it seems like such a waste of energy.
It's because in those scenarios, it's because the ego controls the person instead of the person managing the ego. That really is.
Yeah, I think runaway ego is for sure. And it's a shame to see, because I don't agree that his legacy is going to be all of those negative things that Mitch said. I think that history has a way of the history is written by the winners. So if he sticks around, his companies stay successful, and he bounces back from that, I think, the way people talk about Carnegie and Rockefeller, and, these were brutal business people. These are people who literally worked people to death in unsafe conditions. And they're still looked at as like the model of aristocracy and wealth. So,
well, to that point, though, it's perceptive, because I would never list those people in my top 10,000 best leaders of all time. So it's very perceptive. And it's, you ask the people in that small coastal town in Texas that he basically bought out and kicked them out of their houses to build his space, campus. He literally, I remember reading years ago when they first started building that campus, there was an article done, and they were interviewing, these people that were, living the rest of their lives in a retirement ranch. And basically they would bring major equipment into the middle of that retirement ranch to create so much noise that it would run those people out. I mean, he's been a bully all along. And the first sign I saw of it was when one of the first Teslas blew up and caught fire. And the press asked him, "Hey, what are you going to do about this?" His basic answer was nothing. Like, it's not our fault. We're not going to deal. I mean, he was very hands off. And so to me, that is the rule of reflection of leadership. The greatest rule is, if you were to ask Elon Musk about his legacy, he would probably tell you he doesn't care. Now, I don't think that's the truth deep down. Again, I'm with Troy. I think that's his ego. I think if you could scrape everything away, I think he's a lost little boy that somehow forgot his guiding light, found a lot of money, and that has fed his ego. But if you could really go into a white room with soft walls and dig deeper at a spiritual level, you would find out that Elon Musk is very, very empty and simply searching for meaning, which is crazy, because you think having billions of dollars gives you meaning. But a person with meaning doesn't shirk responsibility. And that's what you've seen all
or date Amber Heard. Let's just get it out there.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point, because I wanted to bring this around to the spiritual aspect of people and how that drives or influences what type of legacy they leave. Does it really, and does it really drive who you are, your spirituality? And then does that determine what type of legacy you're going to leave? And we can leave Elon Musk out of this for now. How does it impact you guys? Brandon, Mitch, Dr. Troy?
Dr. Troy, why don't you go first?
Well, for me, spirituality is certainly a very important component. As a matter of fact, I talk about it in the Cohesion Culture book. It's one of the 4 areas that HR needs to help support within an organization.
Wait. How can that possibly be? How can spirituality be part of a work culture? Doesn't make
Because
sense.
spirituality is not religion. So let's clarify
what?
that.
No, yeah, it is.
Religion is the practice of what you have. Spirituality is your connection with a higher power, your connection with what you, that emotional connection that you have with that concept or that entity. That's your spirituality is at that level where the religion becomes your more finite list. If you kind of think about it, it's the spirituality is the bigger category. And then if I say I'm a Catholic, I'm a Baptist, I'm a Lutheran, Protestant, whatever, or I happen to have no religion, that just becomes a category list. But spirituality is how you interact with yourself in the relationship of others and the relationship of the universe and the people you're around. That's your spirituality. So, and definitely making sure that there is some conversation around that is important for employee well-being. Employee well-being has to do with many aspects of the individual psychic, and you can't simply ignore that one because we have a rule that says that you don't talk about politics or religion within work.
In the workplace. Yeah, right?
Yeah, which I think is
Brandon?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think anything that I think we're rounding into a place in the world where anything that happens to you, anything that is considered a human experience, is finding a space to breathe in the workplace, and I think it should. Right? I don't think it should be. Now we're going to do our Catholic prayers, or we're going to, but I think that there's a lot of sensitivity around it because religion has always meant exclusion in this country, especially. And I think that when you open it up to hey, look, if you're spiritual, we want to give you the opportunity to be the full you at work. Now, if you start handing out pamphlets, we're probably going to have a problem. Because that's not the point. But you should be able to have your full experience without having to hide who you are, right? And I think that's hopefully the next age of enlightenment will be all about no longer hiding who you are, not making it socially acceptable that you're supposed to hide who you are. But to answer your initial question, spirituality in leadership, I think, I think spirit, if you have spirituality, I think we all do to some level, I don't see how it couldn't be a major factor, because
to drive your legacy,
to drive your leadership, which will drive your legacy.
Okay.
Right? Like values are part of your spirituality.
Right.
Like, and I can't see any way around that. I think that's an empirical fact. It's not, maybe not part of your religion, or, look, I have no religion, and to be honest, I'm a little, I feel that religion is more trouble than it's worth. And there, I said it, there's your big at me in the comments, tell me I'm horrible. But I honestly just don't believe that there's been any real benefit to humanity. I think it's done more to control and harm than it has to actually uplift. That being said, I believe everybody should have the right to make their own choice and believe in what they want. I will support them. I'm curious about religious customs. I have friends of all sorts of faiths, and I have no. I'm not looking to harm anyone with that, but that's where I'm at. With that said, I think I have a very strong value system, and I think I'm extremely spiritual and connected to, the the world and the universe and the people around me, and you know, the plants, the trees, and the bees, and whatever else rhymes. But your legacy is going to come down to what were you willing to sacrifice and what weren't you willing to sacrifice, right? At the end of the day, whether it's on the good side, you know, I was willing to sacrifice, you know, time chilling out doing nothing, so I, you know, was able to dig in and really work that extra 110% so that my legacy is cemented. Or on the negative side, you know, where I wasn't willing to sacrifice my integrity. You know, I wasn't willing to sacrifice, you know, my time with my family. And that's part of that legacy, is it? You hear people who talk about leaders who are, you know, he's somebody who understands that family is the most important thing. And so everybody in the organization knows that they're going to be supported in relation to their family. So I think spirituality absolutely is a huge factor
It is.
in shaping a legacy.